Today, Donald Trump called it a hoax. While women who survived Epstein's abuse were speaking out with trembling voices, he dismissed their truth as fiction. They said, "We are not a hoax, we are human beings." And that contrast alone tells you where this fight now stands. Because here's the reality. If Trump truly believes it's a hoax, he can prove it by releasing the Epstein files. Let the public see them, let survivors see them, let us decide if it's a hoax or not. But Trump won't. And that refusal has triggered something no one thought possible. Democrats and Marjorie Taylor Greene now standing on the same side. When Trump's handling of the Epstein files puts Representative Garcia, a Democrat, shoulder to shoulder with Republican Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, you know he is in trouble. Every Republican should be able to sign on to a bill forcing transparency. Yet the hoax, the real hoax, is that they are afraid of the truth, afraid of what's inside those files, afraid to stand with survivors. One Trump official even dared to call these efforts a hostile act against the Trump administration. Think about that. Survivors of child abuse, members of Congress calling for justice, and the Trump camp brands it hostile. But as Greene herself fired back, the real hostile act was Jeffrey Epstein raping 14-year-old girls. That was the hostile act. That was the crime. That was the betrayal. What makes this moment seismic is who is speaking. Greene was once Trump's staunchest, loudest, most loyal defender. She was the embodiment of MAGA, a voice that pushed his agenda at every turn. She was the epitome of the movement. And now she is breaking away, not just on Epstein, but on foreign policy too. Her new slogan isn't America First, it's America Only. She has repositioned herself, and with her pivot comes danger for Trump. Because if Greene, the woman who carried MAGA on her shoulders, is willing to abandon him, how many of his base will follow? On the Epstein issue, she is not whispering, she is front and center. She stood alongside Democrats and Republicans alike at the press conference. Beside her were Representative Massey, a Republican libertarian, and Ro Khanna, a progressive Democrat. Together, Khanna and Massey introduced the bill to force the release of Epstein's files. That coalition alone should send shockwaves through the GOP, and the fact that Greene was right there with them only deepens the split. Now here is something worth noting. Within the Republican caucus, it is almost exclusively women who are stepping up. Greene, Lauren Boebert, Nancy Mace, 3 women, all Republicans, and the only ones other than Massey willing to co-sign the demand. Out of 220 Republican House members, only 31 are women. 31! That imbalance is glaring. And yet, the only ones pushing for accountability on Epstein from within the GOP are women. Is it a coincidence? Or is it proof that diversity matters, that lived experiences give rise to courage others will not summon? Greene is the loudest of the 3, and therefore the most dangerous for Trump, because her credibility with his base means her break cuts deeper. She is not some moderate. She is not a never-Trumper. She is the very personification of MAGA, and now she is saying enough. And she's not stopping with public statements. According to Massey, Greene has already volunteered for something explosive. Survivors of Epstein's abuse have discussed compiling their own list of perpetrators, the men who used them, the powerful who exploited them. But if those survivors release such a list themselves, they face lawsuits, threats, intimidation. They could be sued into bankruptcy or even face death threats from powerful figures desperate to stay in the shadows. That's where Greene comes in. Along with Massey and Ro Khanna, she has volunteered to read those names aloud on the floor of the House of Representatives. Why? Because under the Constitution, members of Congress have speech or debate immunity. Just like litigation privilege in court, lawmakers cannot be sued for what they say in official debate. That immunity is the shield survivors need. Greene, Massey, and Khanna are offering themselves as vessels for truth, a way to bring names into daylight without survivors risking annihilation. Picture that moment. Marjorie Taylor Greene on live television, standing in Congress, reading a list of names tied to Epstein's abuse. Trump calls it a hoax. Greene answers by reciting names into the congressional record. That is not just a fracture in the Republican Party. That is a political earthquake. The irony is staggering. Greene, the woman Democrats once considered their greatest nemesis, now stands closer to them on this issue than to Trump himself. Every Democrat in the House has signed on to the bill, every single one. And now a handful of Republicans join them, not moderates, not centrists, but Greene, Boebert, Mace, and Massey. This isn't a coalition anyone predicted. Yet here it is, united not by ideology, but by a demand for justice. And justice is what the survivors want. One after another at that press conference, they spoke with raw pain. One survivor begged simply to see the files so she could piece together her own memories. Another warned, if nothing is done, monsters like him will rise again. I live every day with PTSD. I live as a mother trying to raise my child while distrusting a world that betrayed me. These are not hoaxes, these are human beings. Their testimony is undeniable, their suffering unrelenting. The tragedy, of course, is that these women have been betrayed not just by Epstein, not just by Maxwell, but by their own government. In 2008, in 2020, in Maxwell's trial, survivors were called, questioned, forced to testify. They gave their stories again and again, expecting justice. And again, the system failed them. Deals were cut, evidence was buried. Maxwell sits today in a cushy prison instead of a cell that fits the gravity of her crimes. The government used these survivors as tools and then discarded them. Betrayal layered on betrayal. And so, now, against that backdrop, Greene's stand matters. It matters not because her other policies suddenly become good, not because Democrats suddenly embrace her worldview. It matters because, on this issue, she is willing to break with Trump, to break with the GOP, to break with silence. Even Ro Khanna himself admitted the moment was so powerful that after Survivor spoke, Greene came over and gave him a hug. That image alone, one of the most polarizing Republicans in Congress embracing a progressive Democrat, shows how deep this issue cuts. The case is simple. Trump could end this with one move. He could say, no other president has released the Epstein files. I am releasing them now. He could claim credit. He could seize the mantle of transparency. He could, for once, put justice above politics. But he won't. Instead, he calls it a hoax. He hides. He alienates even his closest allies. And the result is predictable. The math isn't mathing. What we are witnessing is the slow unraveling of Trump's iron grip on his movement. Survivors stand, demand truth, and are joined by Democrats and Republicans alike. Greene, once the fiercest MAGA warrior, is now preparing to read names into the congressional record that could burn Trump's empire down. And through it all, Trump cowers behind the word hoax. The verdict is clear. The rule of law demands disclosure. Survivors deserve justice. Congress has the constitutional shield to make truth public. And the public has the right to know. Anything less is complicity. Anything less is betrayal. As one survivor said, unless we learn from this history, monsters like Epstein will rise again. That warning is not abstract. It is lived reality. It is why the files must be released. It is why silence cannot stand. And it is why the cracks inside the Republican Party are widening. For Trump, this is not just another scandal. This is the fracture that exposes him. Because when even Marjorie Taylor Greene is willing to turn against you, when even she is willing to side with survivors, you know your defense has collapsed. Release the files. Deliver justice. Let the truth speak louder than the hoax. The gavel falls here. The era of silence must end.